Okay, it's recording. Hello.
Hi.
So I think we just start by saying your name and just saying a little about yourself. You can take the microphone if you want.
Oh, thank you.
That's all right.
I'm Laurie. I'm 20 and I'm about to start a fashion design course at London College of Fashion this September. I love languages and yoga and many things. I don't know how to define myself, but...
You don't need to, that's fine, that's okay. How would you describe your, I put this in like quotation marks, how would you describe your style that you sort of live your life by?
Well, I mean, I think my life is like a continuing like experience of like trying to curate myself rather than like what, I don't know how to even, what?
It's fine, it's fine.
Well, oh my gosh, I recently had this conversation with my 3D tutor who was like, Laurie, you're not a fashion designer, you're a sculptor pretending to be a designer. And I was like, no mate, I'm not a painter, I'm not an illustrator, I'm an explorer. And that is how I think
good. I like that. That's
I
really
would
good.
describe myself. Because I'm like always curious about everything, always like asking questions. That's why I read biology textbooks in my spare time and like love learning every language under the sun. And like just finding like new, effective, interesting ways to discuss that visually, whether that's in work or what I wear or what bowls I buy. I love buying crockery.
Who do you surround yourself with most?
I mean, up until recently it was people that did not exist, so like mostly books. That's actually the place where I find most of my ideas. Like, if it's a good book, I'll get 5 pages in and I have to stop and write an essay because I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like they're like feeding your mind. But people that are kind and courageous and curious and you can have really good conversations with, but not too similar to yourself because I don't like just like repeating myself endlessly. I think other people are so interesting.
No, yeah, you have to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What makes you want to like create things?
Okay. I mean, that's like the biggest question ever. But
Take as long as you need, it's fine.
oh my gosh. So, no, I think about this a lot actually. I read this essay on aesthetics recently and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so important. And they were saying that like you have to have a theory of what art is. And I was like, it's true, because art is elevated visual language. Language is chosen for a purpose. If you don't know what the purpose is, how are you meant to create anything? So I'm always like, what is art? Why am I making it? I am dyslexic, and I grew up like no one understood me. I had like no friends. I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to communicate with anyone because I don't think with words. I think with pictures and like tangible concepts and like, I don't know, like softness or like, I don't. And art speaks that language, and it's really cool that I can just like talk in the first language I ever spoke in my head, which is just nice.
That's really interesting actually, I never thought about that. The fact that like you say, you just think in like pictures and you're able to like express that through art without like writing stuff down, you can just sort of like express it somewhere else. Do you ever try to convey specific messages of what you make?
So whenever I do a project, I'm like, this one will not be political. I will not make political work. And then it always ends up being about gender politics. I don't even know how. So I did this project about like a year ago now, and we were given a gas mask and had 9 weeks to make a project on it. And I actually ended up wearing it to get the bus home. And that's what inspired the whole thing, because it's surprisingly difficult to breathe through. And like not being able to communicate with people was actually like a really difficult experience. No one could like hear what I was saying, so it was like being silenced. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the silencing of women through history, that like there are like no female musicians that we know of, like no female writers, and it's like the voice of like women has just been stamped out for years.
That's incredible.
So I did a whole project about that, and the most recent one I did was all about like power structures. So
you're obviously quite big on like politics and stuff then. So what do you think about Donald Trump being in the country at the minute, and with all the protests that are going on and stuff like that? How does that make you feel?
I mean, I love the fact that people are protesting it. I think it's bringing up some really interesting conversations, because a lot of people are like, why would you protest that? He's not even a politician of our country, but America has so much influence in the world and he's so gross. No, but I feel like recently there's been this huge shift in like a lot of people with really nasty opinions about marginalised groups being given voice. And he's like the biggest, like, I guess, personification of that. Like the way that he like openly talks about Mexicans and women, and like it's led to an increase in like hate crime and like all these great policies like he's going back on. He made the Queen wait. He's just rude. He's just, and his hair. What? Nah. I'm not here for it.
Good. Is there anywhere, like place in particular, that you're most inspired?
Can I say the whole world?
Of course you can. You say whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Literally, like, I can be walking down the pavement and be like, oh, that's really interesting. Or, I mean, mostly it's like places that people have built, whether it's like design or like, I love plants. When I see a good plant, I have to like greet it. I love plants more than I love people. Yeah, earlier I was like, oh, they're so soft.
Why did you cut all your hair off?
So many people ask me this.
Well, I did the same thing, so it's fine.
Me and my friend were having a discussion about it, just like in terms of, I think we were talking about like queer identity or something. And when I cut it off, I realised like how emotional hair is. And like so many people were like, oh no, you shouldn't cut it off. My mum said that she wanted to cry all morning the day that I got it cut off. And I was like,
oh no.
Wow. But then she really loved it. To be honest, it was like a very practical decision. I didn't want to have to deal with the commitment of hair. Mm-hmm. Like every morning I'd be like, oh, how do I make my hair look good? And nothing would work. And I would just get stressed and be miserable. And especially because I've been struggling with like fatigue and depression, it's just a really big commitment.
No, totally.
So I was like, yeah. And then when they started like, when he like cut off the first clump,
that's it then.
It felt so good. And it's like such a cathartic experience to like have all your hair fall off. Just like be fresh. And in the summer, it's so great.
It's hair sucks when it's warm. It sucks. It's so bad.
Hair, just in general, hair sucks.
Is there anything about you or that surrounds you that could potentially... Oh my god. That's so cute.
I love them.
Is there anything about you or like that surrounds you that could potentially stop you from being creative?
Yeah, so much. I feel like being creative is this like really weird thing where I never want to like face it, like the blank page. I always say the hardest thing about doing anything is moving from inactivity to activity. It's just like passing that like threshold.
No, yeah, definitely.
But then like once I'm doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel alive. This is amazing. This is what I should be doing. So obviously I have mental health problems. There are so many days where I'm like, no, I cannot. But then I always force myself to do it, and it's like the only thing that makes me feel good.
If there was like one piece of advice you could give to any creatives who are suffering with like mental health conditions, who are just feeling down and don't really feel like they're in a sort of creative sort of mood, is there anything you could say to them to help inspire them or help put them in the right state of mind to be able to create something? Because that seems like something that you struggle with sometimes.
Yeah. Gosh, these are huge questions that you've written. Wow.
I didn't write that one. I just came up with
Did
that
you?
just now. No.
Gosh. I think a lot of the time mental health lies to you, well, like obviously, but not necessarily just stuff like, oh, you can't make anything, you've run out of talent or whatever, but like you have to feel up to stuff to do it. That's not actually true. Most of the times the best work I've made has been when I was feeling like so uninspired and rubbish, and I was like, do you know what, I'm just gonna force myself to start, and if it's rubbish I'll just go and give myself a break, and that's okay. I did, and I made something, even though my brain was like, nah, it's not gonna work. Every time you do it, you're just proving it wrong. Not to have like a picture in your head of how stuff's gonna look, but that like you don't have to feel motivated to do something. You don't have to like feel inspired to like have a head that's already full of ideas, because it's still your brain. You're still a creative person. You're still an intelligent person. Mm-hmm. Like your mental health hasn't eradicated that. And when you start doing stuff, it will resurface even if you don't feel it.
Yeah, no, totally. Like to be motivated, you have to start.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You can't be motivated until you actually
That's
start
good. Oh my gosh. I feel like I need to start asking you questions.
No, oh my god.
So Miles, tell me more about that.
I don't. Do you think being creative helps your mental health? at all?
I mean, I think just the way I'm built, if I wasn't able to be creative, I would be so miserable and lost. So, like, yes.
Yeah, I think you need an
But
outlet.
yeah, if I wasn't able to express myself like that, because I'm not, when there's like a prescribed format for anything, like I hate like social situations or like just anything that has rules that I don't know how to follow, because I always do things in my own way, and so I just get stressed out. But when it's like art, whatever that is, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that space, I would lose my mind.
Do you want to take your artistic or like creative career into the future and hopefully make a life out of it? Or do you think that's possible?
Yes, it's possible. So many people are like, don't go into the creative industries, there are no jobs. Like, everyone's either poor or they're like Damien Hirst. But it's the fastest growing sector of our economy. So there are clearly a lot of jobs. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like especially because I want to do fashion design, which is a bit more vocational than like, I want to be a fine artist.
Yeah.
That's a bit harder. But I would like to design. There's like 1,000 things I want to do there. I want to like write, make film, teach, do community stuff, keep a fine art practice. So, and hopefully get paid for some of that.
I mean, that's always good.
Which is hard in the creative industries.
Yeah.
But it is really difficult to get a head start being creative in the industry without money. Like having projects and not having the money to make the work is really difficult. So I'd say like yes and no.
Yeah, no, I know. I see what you mean. There's two sides to look at.
Yeah, especially because I want to be a designer. Like starting your own brand, even making a collection, buying the fabric is like so expensive. And there are like bursaries and awards, but it's never enough.
Yeah. No.
It's like it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
So
Is there anybody that you look up to?
I mean, there are so many. Oh my gosh. Definitely, not to be really like cliche, but my mum. Because I have a lot of health problems, and she has multiple sclerosis. But like it's only been in like the last 5 years. But the way she's like handled everything with so much like gratitude and maturity and just like so much optimism and still like being there for other people despite having like these huge health issues herself, and like learning that you actually have to look after yourself so that you can look after other people. I do not think I'd have got through my health struggles if I hadn't have had her to look up to. But then I have so many incredible friends who are just like geniuses and I'm just like, wow, you're so smart. And people that are really like comfortable, that's not a word. I was saying confident and comfortable. Comfortable. Be comfortable, people. Yeah, people that are really comfortable with themselves. I just think that's so cool. When they're just like, yeah, this is me and that's chill.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I agree. Obviously, you've been to college and you've studied art and you've been doing it for a while. Do you think art and like creativity is something that can be taught, or do you think you have to have something inside of you that makes you artistic or makes you creative?
I think all art has to be taught heuristically, which is a word I learned recently.
What does that mean?
If something's heuristic, it means that you're leading someone else to discover it for themselves. My art education was not great until I went to college, but the reason college was so great was because it just provided the right environment where there were the resources if I needed them. There were like tutors to like help me with ideas and stuff, but it was just the space to grow in my own practice on my own, which I think you have to, because you're the only one who knows what's like right for you to do next as an artist.
No, yeah,
so like no one else can. That's why we do art, because no one else is built like us, and it's like our view of the world that we're presenting. I think you do need to be in the right environment to grow. It's like growing plants. You need like fertilizer, sun, rain. College can provide that. Not to be really twee.
No, it's fine. It's totally
but
fine.
Yeah, but obviously I feel like there's a lot of stuff in art education where people are like, here's how to shade really well. Here's how to blend oil paints. Forgot the word paint. But wow.
Fine.
Which is
right.
technical skill is important, but there's so much more to art than technical skill. Like what are you gonna do with the images? And you can only figure that out yourself.
It's
So.
that identity. And if everyone did exactly what the teachers were saying, they'll
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have a plan for the future? If you haven't got one, it's totally fine. I haven't got one, so it's totally fine. But if you do, now's your time to share.
Why, thank you. My plan is to not have a plan. Whenever I make a plan, it doesn't work out. So I just kind of like take it one day at a time. See, that's not really an answer.
It is.
But
If that's your answer, that's your answer.
yeah, I mean, you don't know what opportunities there are going to be until they smack you in the face. And then you're like,
Precisely.
oh yeah, I'll do that.
Especially in the creative field.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Literally. So it's like, just keep moving forward, keep your eyes open. That's my plan.
Thank you. Do you have anything to round off? Did you have a nice time? Was this a nice experience for you? I had a nice time. I had a very nice time. You had a terrible time?
No, it was great.
Cool. Thank you very much for allowing me to grill you, interrogate you
Oh,
in front of a
it's
camera.
perfect weather for a barbecue.
Grill, yeah. Anything you want to say about the flowers?
They are lovely.
Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Adios.